It was 1 year ago yesterday that Sara Carter, John Solomon broke the story that, in fact, there was a FISA warrant issued against the Trump campaign, an associate of the Trump campaign. And at the time, President tweeted out some days later that, looks like I was wiretapped. And everybody in the media mocked, made fun of, and then so many people that knew that it had happened denied it publicly. Then it gets to the issue of the phony dossier. We have found out about, we have a phony dossier that was bought and paid for by the Clinton campaign and the DNC. That was used as the bulk of information to secure a FISA warrant. That was the biggest part of the application to get the FISA warrant. And, in fact, they withheld very key information from the FISA court judge. They never said that Clinton bought and paid for it. They only had a footnote. It may be political in nature. That's lying by omission as far as I'm concerned. Then you have the issue of James Comey, who knew that it was bought and paid for, knew that the FISA warrant was applied for. When he met with Trump 3 months after the application had been granted, well, he lied to Donald Trump saying it was not verified and not salacious. Now, that violates a whole host of FBI rules, the FISA law, and a bunch of other things. Now, a lot of you have been impatient about making progress on all these issues. It's only been a year since we've started, and we've made so much progress. Now, yesterday was another day where a lot of progress was made. There was a hit piece that was put out against that FBI informant in the Uranium One case. Now, he was the one that was in Vladimir Putin's operation network within inside America that had a goal of getting a foothold in America's uranium industry. And he's the one that chronicled the bribery, the extortion, the money laundering, and the kickbacks. Well, there was a selective leak against William Campbell. This is a guy that's been in the CIA, some 30 years. He's been in this career. He knew about Vladimir Putin's intentions early on. Robert Mueller was the FBI director. William Campbell was an FBI informant, and they did nothing. Anyway, the attorney for William Campbell fought back hard yesterday, and as a matter of course, also revealed that there is an investigation into the Clinton Foundation that is being undertaken by the FBI office in Arkansas. So here to weigh in on all these new developments this week, Sara Carter, investigative reporter, Fox News Channel, and Victoria Tunsing of DeGeneva and Tunsing, who is the lawyer for Mr. Campbell, the informant in the Uranium One case. Welcome, both of you.
Thank you, Sean.
All right, you wrote this
really
letter.
Nice to talk to you.
Victoria, what a stinging rebuke to this hit piece that was leaked to the Hill, and there's a lot of new information in it. Tell us all that you can at this point.
Well, the Democrats were intent on putting out what Mr. Campbell did not know. Well, Sean, if I tell you that I've got a lot of influence with X, and X is going to do me a good deal, and that deal takes place, and you learn later that X received a lot of money from me, do you see? I mean, you don't need to be there to see the money exchanging hands. You don't need to know any more than that I bragged about being able to fix something through X, and that thing got done. So the Democrats were just saying, well, he wasn't there. He didn't see the money. He didn't see it pass. He didn't hear this. He wasn't at CFIUS. Well, of course not. That was not his role. I told you all along, whenever you tease me and say, okay, what's he going to say? I would say, he's going to tell you what the Russians were saying about their relationship with the Clintons. And what he said was exactly that. They were always bragging that they had influence with the Clintons. And lo and behold, the CFIUS deal goes through.
The article in the Hill, the hit piece, was based solely on Democratic sources and a Democratic memo. Now, as you lay out how false and how basically this is a hit job against your client, and this is only selective leaking by Democrats that got a hold of this information, you also reveal that it wasn't very long ago, in December of just last year, 2017, that FBI agents in Little Rock, Arkansas, interviewed the informant, Mr. Campbell, about the Clinton Foundation. Now, would they have done so if they had any credibility concerns about him? The answer is obviously no. So
absolutely not, because it was about the Clinton Foundation, which was not the subject of when he was working to show the corruption in the Russian companies way back in 2009 and 10. This was about the Clinton Foundation, which he was not asked to report on at the time. So now they came back and they told him he was a great fellow, and they really praised him for his work. The Democrats are lying, which they do often. Adam Schiff just lies when he talks. Let me just tell you something. They criticized him for his memory. Well, Mr. Campbell has leukemia, and he's taking medicine. Every morning he has to take chemotherapy medicine. And so he conks out for about 3 or 4 hours. That's why we had to even have the briefing in the afternoon. He worked for a couple of weeks knowing this briefing was coming up to write everything down so he could be polite to them. And if he forgot something, which he rarely did during the 4.5 hours, he could confer it to his notes. And they mock him because he doesn't have a good memory. The Democrats,
it's pretty disgraceful.
Somebody with cancer.
And how many years has he served his country within the CIA,
30,
being an informant?
30.
And he was a covert operative and undercover at times. So that means he was risking his life every time, right?
Yes, and let me tell you about this reporter from the Hill, because I said to her, "Hey, you didn't even call me. I mean, that's journalism 101. Oh, I'm sorry. I apologize. And I wanted a retraction, and she said, well, no, because I printed what the Democrats told me. That was her reason for not wanting
it's typical media. It's such a disgrace, the state of so-called journalism. I want to get your take on this, Sarah. The thing that stands out is this interview by the Arkansas FBI looking into the Clinton Foundation, really confirming something we have thought was happening, we suspected was happening, we've gotten wind that it was happening, but now we have full confirmation it is happening.
Yes, the fact that we know now, without a doubt, that the FBI Little Rock, Arkansas field office is investigating the Clinton Foundation. Remember, it's part of a number of field offices, Sean, that we suspected were still investigating the Clinton Foundation. This is just rock solid that that's exactly what they're doing. And it is evident that they would go to William Campbell, Victoria's client, and ask him for an interview because they believe and they know he has information to share with them. This is about this entire Democratic memo, and I did get a response back from the Hill, which is in my story. This entire Democratic memo was a hit piece, basically on William Campbell. The FBI paid him over $50,000 in 2016. They invited him for dinner. They thanked him for his service, for his work. You don't keep a man for 6 years undercover in this particular case, working both counterintelligence and criminal for the Bureau, if they are unreliable and not very good at collecting information.
But didn't he discover, while he had penetrated and was an informant for our FBI, he discovered bribery, extortion, money laundering,
absolutely,
kickbacks, basically racketeering. It's a Putin network working within the United States with a goal to get a foothold in the uranium industry. Now, Bob Mueller is the FBI director at the time. He was passing this information on to his superiors. Why did they allow Putin's operatives to be successful in the end? This is 18 months before they signed off on that Uranium One deal.
Well, because they were in a counterintelligence investigation, and this is what's really incredible here. You know, we know now that William Campbell had worked with the CIA. We know he was passed off by the CIA to the FBI, which was investigating, bribery, kickbacks, and all kinds of other type of schemes, money laundering between the Russians and U.S. contractors here in the United States. And we know that Campbell was providing very sensitive counterintelligence information. So I think what happens is this. They're collecting the counterintelligence information, and they can't crack down fast enough on the bad guys because they're still collecting information. But the fact remains that the information that Campbell was providing to the FBI was being run up the chain of command, and that's according to the agents that were handling him. That is the information that they gave him, and we know it ran up the chain of command. We believe Mueller, of course, knew about this. Then it would go further up, and according to the FBI handlers, and this is based on Campbell's documentation from the time, it actually went to the President of the United States. Well, even if the public didn't know about this, Sean, the United States government, people within the government knew about it. And that would have been enough.
They knew about it and they did nothing.
Somebody on the CFIUS board stop that sale.
And they had 18 months knowledge, full. I thought Russian interference, Victoria Tunsing, was something that we'd never wanted in this country. But it sounds like they allowed Russian interference at a level that goes way beyond them trying to use trolls to impact an election.
But, Sean, this was during the Obama administration. He'd do no wrong. And this was Russia Reset, which everybody applauded. You recall that. So this was in 2009, 2010, and Hillary was making eyes at Putin, and it was all hunky-dory. Also, all they had to do, as Sarah was just saying, all the government had to do was write a secret memo to the CFIUS people and say, we can't go into detail right now, but these are bad players, so don't approve it.
That's all they had to do. You're right. All right, we'll take a break. We'll come back more with Victoria Tunsing and Sara Carter on the other side of the break. We're going to look at the polls. Interesting things happening. This blue Democratic wave that people were predicting never happened. What does it mean for 2018? All right, as we continue with Victoria Tunsing and Sara Carter, and Victoria represents the informant in the Uranium One case, and we have now discovered that, in fact, he spoke to the FBI Bureau in Arkansas as it relates to the Clinton Foundation, so this is getting interesting. I want to ask you both about the comments yesterday by Jeff Sessions having appointed an outside person outside of Washington who worked many years at the Department of Justice looking into the FISA abuses, and he said he's well aware that he has a responsibility to ensure the integrity of the FISA process. Sounds to me like this is a prelude to a special counsel, Victoria.
Well, we would hope so, because the IG, even though we all respect him and know he's going to do an honest job, Mike Horowitz, he has no authority to subpoena anybody outside the Justice Department, and that's an administrative subpoena or a command, walk or talk, if you're working at DOJ. But if you're not, if you have left DOJ or you are working at the CIA or State Department, then he can't compel you to talk to him about anything. So forget the fact that he doesn't even have the power to indict somebody. So it's got to go to a special counsel.
All right, and I think this is a tip of the hat. Now, what I heard is we're less than 10 days away from the IG report. I hear the IG report is going to be devastating to names that this audience will be familiar with. FBI not following processes. They're going to their own process, their own way of doing things, and that things have really become politicized at the Bureau in the higher echelons at least. Sarah, it would seem to me that then would trigger a special counsel. That would probably go back looking at the Clinton email investigation and the fix being in and it being rigged. And that would mean that the dossier is going to be looked into, who bought and paid for it, and how was it ever presented the way it was to a FISA court without giving the FISA judges the proper information.
Yeah, of course, absolutely. I mean, I spoke today to several congressional members that informed me that it looks more likely that a special counsel will be appointed, and that's what they're hearing. So it looks like we are definitely heading in that direction. And I think it's interesting because Attorney General Jeff Sessions, when he was on Fox talking to Shannon Bream, he was very explicit that he had a prosecutor outside of the scope that has been looking at this for some time. And remember, this is something that they had spoken to us about in the past. It's something I reported on and included, that they did have prosecutors looking at this, and they were assessing whether or not this should move towards a special counsel. Victoria brought up really great points. I mean, they're outside the scope of the IG, some of these witnesses that he needs to call in. I have been told that Michael Horowitz, who's the Inspector General, really doesn't have the resources to go after something as big as foreign intelligence surveillance application violations or the FBI.
But he doesn't have the prosecutorial powers either, so that's why it would have to be handed over. That's
right. I want to go back really quick, Sean, to Victoria and her, and the issue that she's been dealing with the Uranium One informant with Mr. Campbell. I was looking at a number of stories that came out after the Hill, and I can tell you, maybe we can ask her now, but Yahoo didn't have a comment from her, CNN didn't, the Washington Examiner, the Washington Post, Reuters.
No, they never bothered, which is why she had to put out her own statement.
They never bothered to call Victoria.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have any time, but we'll have you both on Hannity tonight, and we'll delve deeper. This is a huge development, and Victoria, I'm sorry what they did to your client. Obviously, he was trying to to warn everybody how dangerous this was, and we should have heeded his warning. Thank you both. We'll have a lot more on Hannity tonight as these stories now move into hyper speed mode and new developments, it seems, every hour.